Today on Project Car Haven, I'm working on something that isn't a car, talk about the importance of drive chains, remove expired fluids, play with some new tools, install new parts, and test to ensure the repairs were effective. Welcome to another episode of Project Car Haven, where this week we work on something that isn't a car. Now this is a V Star 250, it's a Yamaha. I picked this up because I was led to believe I may need a motorcycle license for a job I was applying for. Didn't need a motorcycle license, didn't get the job. Doesn't matter, I ride motorcycles now. Not that often because I'm still a learner, I can't go out by myself. And I don't know anything about motorcycles, I've never owned one before in my life, but they don't seem that complicated. And so I'm just gonna dig in and start doing some things to it and enjoying it. I thought I'd start making some videos. So this is the first one on this bike. And first step is I'm going to need to replace this chain because it's a bit rusty, and also I need to change the gearing. So in order to do that, I am going to have to move this undercover on a solid surface, so be with you in a sec. So I decided to start off with something small and light and easy to handle for a first bike. I didn't need something that's super fast. I don't need to die. Overall, it's a fairly neat and tidy bike, but there are a couple of issues which I need to sort out. One is this rusty chain. So this chain isn't in the best condition. It does feel a bit stiff. And this is an O-ring chain, which means there are O-rings in between the links here to stop dirt and grime getting in between, make the chain last a bit longer. But these O-rings are getting spat out, chewed up. And so this chain is done. And it's good practice to change the sprockets while you're at it. And there is another reason to change the sprockets, because for whatever reason, I think this is an XVS250 and the Viragos and other V Stars are just XV. And I think one of the differences is the chain gauge is a different size and the sprockets are also very different. On a typical Virago, the front sprocket has 16 teeth and a 45 tooth rear, which is found to be too low geared. A good suggestion from most people online that I can see is changing the front to a 17 and the rear to a 40, which gives it a bit more legs for the highway speeds, and it can still handle the lower stuff. It's not going to be too slow to accelerate. This, however, having a different chain pitch means that the front sprocket is 20 teeth and the rear is 56. So here on the rear sprocket there's a marking that says 56, so that way I know that it is the XVS style with the 428 gauge chain. It's not common. For whatever reason, the Viragos usually run a 520 chain with a 1645 setup. Now, it's a whole bunch of numbers. You don't need to understand it all. But what you do need to understand is this gearing is similar to typical Viragos. You take the larger number, 56, divide it by the smaller number, 20, and you get a ratio which works out to 2.8. Normal Viragos with a 1645. 45 divided by 16 ends up being 2.81. So when I switch out to a 17 front and 40 rear, that gives me a ratio of 2.35, which means at highway speeds, the engine doesn't have to rev as high to maintain the original speed. This bike does need it because it does rev a bit higher when you're trying to maintain highway speeds, just trying to improve fuel economy and not put so much strain on the engine. So in order to get access to the front sprocket, I need to take this cover off. Three more bolts to take off this cover plate. Just 5mm Allen keys. Probably be easier if we took the shift lever off, but I'm not going to do that. You know what? I have to anyway. It's held on there. I am going to go and get a marker and make sure I get that back on the right orientation, the way that it currently is now. Just mark where that slot lines up. So now I walked off with the 10mm and I've lost that. That's good. Always looking for tools, always. Because it's a slot that's there. That bolt has to come out the entire way because it rests in this slot. If you don't take it out, it's still just going to grab on the end and not release. So all the way out, and then that slides off. Now that should be free. There we go. That can do with a clean too. I'm going to awkwardly apply the rear brake and then try and move this spanner. So good luck to me. You might not have been able to see that, but it actually worked. Actually, while I'm at it, now I've taken that cover off, you can see some of these O-rings that have actually fallen out of the chain. So it's rusty and the O-rings are giving up. So that's, you know, it's not good. It's time for a new one. I don't think this is going to work. Well, sometimes things happen. So what I did is I ordered a set of sprockets, which I assumed would fit, and the profile of the interior of the front drive gear is different, which means I have to find a different style. In order to improve the gearing, I now need to order a 38 tooth rear. Sorry, and the largest I can find with that interior profile to fit is a 14 tooth. So the gearing won't improve as much as a 1740. But we are going to a 1438, which does make it a little bit better. Also, we get to change the chain to a 520 instead of a 428. This stuff's getting harder to find, so need to go away and order some more parts, and then we'll be back to put on the revisions and hopefully have it work. In the meantime, I'm going to clean up these parts, throw them back on, and when I see you again, we'll be at this point. I'll have it all pulled off, ready to go again. Well, actually, before I do that sprocket change, hopefully, I think I'm going to bleed the brakes as well, because I don't like the look of the fluid. Now, it should be a nice straw colour, but that looks like a little bit brown. Yeah, not 100% convinced it's actually good, so I'm going to take that out and replace it. Straighten that up. Got a rag on standby here, syringe, screwdriver. Get this cap off. Yeah, that fluid's actually quite dark. Looks like there's some bits floating in it too. So yes, this was overdue for a change. Just emptying the reservoir out. A little bit of fresh fluid in the syringe just to compare to a little bit bad. Let's get rid of that. Clean any remnants out of the seals. So that's clean. There's a little bit of grime in here. I'm going to get a rag and clean that out as best I can. Use a bit of paper towel, try and get out and soak up, wipe out what I can. Yeah. Cap off the bleed nipple. 8mm fitted to the bleed nipple, hose attached to a bleeding tray. Add the fluid to the reservoir now. That is much cleaner than before. .4 brake fluid as recommended. Just done up this little window on the brake master there. Seems quite clean compared to what it was before. All good, job done. And just like that, I'm back. It's a week later and I've got new parts because the old parts aren't going to fit. So the parts I ordered, You see the interior profile like that. I needed that. Now unfortunately, the tooth count isn't what I'm after, so I had to order a smaller rear sprocket. So what I had ordered was the 40 tooth, and I'm not going to be able to use that because I need to decrease the size for gearing. So now I have a 38 tooth. The ratio won't be as improved, but it is better than stock. So back to where I was. First thing I'm going to try and do is remove the front sprocket so I can use the brake to hold it in place and get that nut undone. Then attempt to get the rear sprocket off and hopefully make enough room to get the chain off. And if I can't do that, then I have a chain splitter, which means I'm going to have to grind one of the pins and push that out to then unfold the chain, then get rid of it. Foot on the brake. Oh, that's done the trick, kind of. Slide that out. Okay, let that drop down. Quick test, let's see if this new front sprocket actually fits. It does. Excellent. There's the difference in those sprockets. You can see the difference in the tooth pitch, which requires the different chain onto the rear. Once again, using the brake to my advantage to hold the wheel still so I can undo the nuts that hold on the rear sprocket. Now the nuts for the sprocket have been removed, it's a matter of removing the main bolt axle for the rear wheel and then getting that to drop down so I can get all this stuff off, hopefully. So the chain's like around the axle anyway, so I am going to have to use the chain splitter to get that off. And good news is the hole spacing matches, so this will fit. It looks like I'm going to be able to successfully put a new chain on this. It's good. I'm also about to find out if I can get this back in without having to disassemble the rear brake. I don't know. It's not dumb if it works. Now, just to ensure that I actually do get the rivet out of the chain that I want to remove, I'm going to grind off the face of it so the flared end is gone. It should be nice and smooth and push out fairly easily. I'm just taking this apart now. It's hollow down there. Fit the spring. Fit the tool that's going to push that rivet out. Fit this back in. There it goes. There you go. Links out. Great. One broken, trashed chain gone. Time to attempt to feed this chain on. So yes, this replacement chain is longer than it needs to be. You're going to have to grind out one of these pins and then use the master link to join it together. So I adjust the wheel all the way forward, cut some of the links off. I'm sorry I didn't show that. That master link's now in place, but the front cover needs to go on. Before that, it needs to be fitted with O-rings too. Covering the supplied O-rings with grease. O-rings that'll stop any debris getting in between the links of the chain. Makes it last a bit longer. Nearly. Yeah. 17th time's a charm. Right, so that's the master link fitted. I've adjusted the wheel back to bring tension to the chain. It's a bit tighter than it was, but it's got about 25 mil or 1 inch of deflection, which is, you know, about right for a street bike apparently. Tighten back up the axle. Now it's just a matter of getting it down off the stand, putting all the covers and other things back on here, and then take the test ride. So I've got some Motul C5 chain paste. Apparently it's some of the best stuff you can use for this. It's a new chain and it does have lubricant on it, but I am going to add this just to make sure it's well covered because I don't need that to fail. Just working it to the top of the brush there. Now it's a matter of resting it on the chain, squeezing the tube, turning the tyre and getting the chain covered. Top side as well. Now I've probably gone way overboard there, so I'm just going to use a rag to sort of wipe up the excess, and then that should be good to go. that's the test ride successfully completed. The chain didn't make any untoward noises or break, and the clutch is no longer slipping, so that's good. The brakes feel good, but I did notice that the fork seals are weeping a bit, so that's a task for another day. And I guess that's it for this one, so thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.